I'm so honored to introduce our speaker for today. This woman is an international phenomenon, straight up, no cap, honestly. She's a gift of all gifts. She is a Hall of Fame recognized marketing exec. She's got more accolades and more celebration that I can give in this introduction. She's worked for the best of the best, and everything she touches turns to gold. In fact, she's touched something that I believe is going to touch you in her book that's coming out called The Urgent Life. But without further ado, I want to get this gift in front of you ASAP. Do me a favor, stand to your feet and give a warm welcome to Bozoma St. John.
And so what I want to do first, and I'm sort of in a hot seat here in the middle, but I think it would be a fun question to ask. Jollof, are we going with...
Oh, snap! First of all, Lady West Africans in the room.
Exactly. Do we want to start off that way?
I'm Nigerian.
I came in peace, but I am a winner, so.
And Ghanaian.
Amen.
And for anyone who doesn't know, there has been a war as old as Abraham.
How can it be a war if we already won? Like, it's not a war.
About whose jollof rice is better.
It's no competition, in fact.
I heard Nigeria. Are you agreeing? Amen.
Don't make me remove my shoes right now.
I think we need to have like a peace agreement.
Do we?
That, all our jollof rice is right in our mouth,
Okay.
Tastes just right.
Sure.
No, I love it. Yeah, this is a war, but today we're coming into a peace settlement.
Okay.
But I'm really, I'm really excited about this conversation. There's a scripture I actually want to read because Bozoma's story and this book on the urgent life, it has really captivated me. And what I love so much about this is the urgent life is the message of Christ. There's a scripture in Matthew 24 from 42 to 44, and it says this, "Therefore, stay awake, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But know this, that if the master of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect." The message of the gospel has to do with living this urgent life. And I want to really hear from you, the inspiration and the understanding behind those words, the urgent life.
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. I do appreciate it. It's great to be here this morning with you. It's been quite a week. My book was released on Tuesday. And yeah. And as we have said, it's been, quite a journey. I have been a marketer my entire career. And I still, I'm getting used to saying that I'm an author.
Yeah.
So it is a new day for me to be here with you and to say these words out loud and to claim it. So I thank you for the space to be able to do that. Urgency, as you said, is, I believe it is something that is a gift to us. It's a gift because life, if it's lived passively, will really go you by. It'll just be there as something that doesn't feel exciting or passionate or even something that you want to enjoy. Without urgency, you don't feel alive, actually. Have you ever been excited about the next day, about something that's coming, right? You can't sleep. Or who in here, first day of school, you lay out your clothes the night before? If you didn't clap, you're lying. And we're in God's house, so don't do that, okay? But that excitement, that you were waiting, you couldn't wait for the day to come. That is urgency. And my feeling now is that I want every day to feel like that. And I remember somebody saying to me once that that was a ridiculous expectation of life. You know, they were like, it's not possible to have every day feel amazing. And I was like, but why not? That is just your perspective. Because even on the days that something terrible has happened, can you not find the joy in it? This is an active choice. It is not passive life. This is an act. You decide to be urgent. You decide to find joy. You decide to find love. You decide to find peace, even over Nigerian jollof. This was a choice I made today, not to fight her on this stage. You know what I'm saying? But all of these things are an active choice. And, you know, it makes me think of that hymn. I won't sing it because, you know, God didn't bless me with that kind of gift. If he did, I would not be talking right now. But, you know, I've had my good days. Ooh, y'all know it. I won't complain, you know? And in the lyrics there's like I've had my weary days. I've had my bad days. Whew. And I think about that and it's like, you know, but when I look around, my good days outweigh my bad days. And even in the bad days, the urgency of what you want to achieve needs to be present. You know? It's like, I don't know about you, but sometimes are you having a bad day and just like, okay, come on, get it together. Let's change this. I don't know if you say that to yourself. I say that to myself all the time. And it is a choice to do that. Or you can lay down. Now, sleep is also a choice. I'm not mad at that. But in the essence of what we are talking about, my life has been full of urgency. Early on in my life, I was more impatient than anything else. Yeah, the impatience was my urgency. And then there were stages of traumas and losses and pivots and things that were happening. You know, it felt like life was happening to me. Even though I was getting up and I was like, okay, I'm going to go do this thing. I want to, you know, be a mom and I want to be a wife and I want to do this and I want to do that. And life just kept lifing on me. But it was a choice to become urgent and intentional in my urgency so that I'm living the life that I actually want, even in the bad days.
That is phenomenal. And even when you talk about wanting to be a mom, right? Like this book, your story is honestly phenomenal. Because there's the story of when you lost your first baby, and it was the baby or you. And you even made the decision that, no, I could go save the baby. And, you know, and I'm sure you'll speak on that, but, you know, it ended up being that you lost the baby, but then you still had a desire to try again. Like, your story was meant to write this book. Your life it's almost like God really designed, you know, your steps, ordered your steps, so that we would have the gift of the messaging that is in this book. Because what you have went through, and you will really learn more about her story, but even when you talk about trauma, losses, these are very deep, extensive things. And to have this, you know, understanding and this confidence in, no, I'm going to live with urgency every day. You're making the decision that I'm not going to be depressed. I'm not going to just lay down and let life happen to me, but I'm going to engage in my life. With whatever I'm given, I'm going to engage in it. That, to me, you're truly a testimony of what you've written. But even, can you speak on that? Like, knowing that even what would have put your life at risk, you are willing to go again.
Well, I think that even though I've suffered some losses and some trauma that can feel unimaginable to some people, I don't think that my story is really that unique from other people You know, if we went around this room and passed the mic around, we could all talk to things that have happened to us that have made us feel like we don't want to go on, or that you want to go hide in a cave somewhere. And the challenge for me as I thought about writing this book and really sitting down and thinking about the parts I wanted to tell, the first thing I had to overcome was shame. Was feeling like, gosh, I don't want anybody to know how my weaknesses have hurt me. Even though it was like I couldn't control the things that happened, And I do remember a very poignant moment at my husband's funeral. He died in December of 2013 from cancer. And my daughter was 4, and we're standing in the line at the back of the church after the service, kind of numb, right? But people are coming by and giving hugs and giving an encouraging word. And person after person after person kept saying, "Be strong. Be strong." And I'll stand there looking at them like, what are you talking about? How am I supposed to be strong? And what does that mean? Because if I lay down and cry, is that weakness? Or is that just my pain? And will you help me up? Maybe you need to be strong for me. And so in writing this book, I did want to express all of my vulnerability, everything. And in fact, there have been people, and even my editor on first read was like, you tell a lot. Even the things that don't make me look like a hero. And I think for all of us, we have to begin to change that narrative, not just in the general society, but even in the church. For all of us, that our vulnerabilities, the things that happen in our life that will knock you down are not weakness. It's not weakness. The fact that I have survived these things, I'm the strongest person I know for those reasons. And so I wish for all of us, and I pray for all of us, that whatever things are happening in your life that are making you feel weak, that you'll know the strength of your weakness.
And you mentioned just recently that you felt shame as one of the vulnerabilities that you experienced. And I know for sure that I have experienced shame and guilt and a lot of things in my own story. And a part of that was actually feeling angry at God because of how I thought something was going to happen and then it was snatched away from me. Or I prayed for something and it didn't happen. And you experienced something very similar. And I wonder if you can talk through how you were able to, I think you said he's your homie, how you were able to, have those moments where you were unhappy with God, but you were still able to maintain relation.
Yeah, look, I do say that God is my homie because I want to figure out how to say this. It's, you love God, but sometimes you can be mad at God. You can be upset. I felt that a lot because I didn't understand how I could pray for healing and not receive it. Because I thought, well, isn't that the test? Right? Like, you're supposed to be faithful. And then you receive the blessing of that faithfulness. That is the contract, God. Not quite sure if you're aware. And sometimes that didn't happen. When my husband was diagnosed with cancer, it was May of 2013. He was diagnosed with Burkitt's lymphoma. And unfortunately for us, it was not new. Cancer was not new to us. Both of our mothers had battled cancer. My mother was in her second battle when he was diagnosed. And I think we thought we could pray it away. I remember that when his cancer was deemed terminal in October, a good friend of mine, we'd gone to college together, she suggested that we get on a big conference call, because I had started to update things on Facebook, not just to my close friends and family, but wider. I was finding that there was a larger community of people whom I didn't know who were invested now, in our story, and who were sending words of encouragement. So she was like, you know what, we should put a conference call together. And we should make the number open, anyone can join, and we will pray. All of us will pray together. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. So we get this number together, we organize on a particular night. Peter was feeling too sick to join it, but all the rest of us were here, fervent, ready. And I remember thinking at the beginning of the call, I was like, Lord, clearly you've not been listening to my prayer. So maybe you'll listen to all these other people. I don't know what happened between us, but you're not listening to me. So please, listen to everyone else. There must be somebody more faithful in here than me. So do that. And when he died, I was mad. Because I couldn't understand how not only was he a faithful person, but all of us, our mothers, our fathers, our whole families, when I'm telling you, we were in warfare, in prayer. And it didn't make any sense. And I recognized the fact that, there is sometimes the experiences that we have are meant to be short. The relationships sometimes that we have are meant to be short. And so does that not make you more urgent about the way you experience them? It doesn't always have to be a physical death, but maybe it's an emotional death, a death of romance, maybe a death of trust, or something else that severs the relationship. Would you not be more urgent in the relationship if you knew that the end was coming? And for me, that is what has changed my whole existence in relationships with everybody, by the way. That's not even just like in romantic relationships or friendships, it's with work. It is with everything, every kind of relationship. I am more urgent in my life because I do not know how long it will last. And I don't find that to be morbid. I'm very much inspired by that. It makes me want to get up and do it more. Like what would you do this afternoon if you knew that the person that you loved most only had one more day? What would you do differently? If you're thinking about something that you're not already doing, I beg you to do it. And that is not a morbid thing. Make it inspiring to your life. If tonight you're sitting at home and you get the Sunday scaries because you don't want to do whatever is coming tomorrow, I beg of you to consider the next tomorrow and what you might do differently. Because that is the inspiration for us to live a life urgent. That is the way that we're actually going to make life filled with all kinds of experiences that make us feel like we're actually alive. That you're not just waiting for next day to come. Why are you waiting till Wednesday? Why are you not waiting for Monday? So for me, it has completely changed the way I approach everything. And it is surprising to me when people say, oh, but, shouldn't you just take your time and smell the roses? I'm like, yeah, I've been smelling the roses. I got roses in my pocket. Where are your roses at? Because I didn't wait to go smell the roses. I picked the roses and put them here, carried them with me. And so that is the kind of life I'm trying to live.
And really, what you're talking about, even from a biblical perspective, is really being a good steward. You know, because the reality is that we don't own anything in life, right? We don't own anyone. We don't own anything. And whenever the Lord has a need for that or wants to shift it or rearrange it, he will. And a lot of times I think the disappointments we experience is because we feel like ownership over this relationship, ownership over my children, ownership over this position. But in reality, you're only steward in it. You know, I remember for many years, I had a fear of loved ones dying. I had a deep fear of it, especially because my father was murdered when I was 8 months old. And I just had this, I didn't like getting too close to people because I didn't want a situation where I would get too close to someone and then I have to deal with losing that person. And it was a crippling fear. Never talked about it. I just kept it to myself. But then I would notice, like, even when my mom would call me, if she's coughing, just a cough, I start praying, fasting. I said, Lord, heal the cough now. It was just like this crippling thing. And I remember one day in prayer, and I was just bringing that to God. I'm like, I don't know what this is. And it was so simple. I remember the Lord just telling me, everyone is going to die. And what I understood from that was not even just to your point, not just natural death. There is an expiration for everything. And so why are you so consumed about that rather than experiencing what you have in the now? You know, enjoying the time that you do have with your mom, enjoying the relationships that you do have, showing up and being present 100%. And in that moment, that broke. It was a fear that even made me not want to even think about marriage, because I'm like, oh no, I don't want to go through what my mom went through. But then I'm like, no, that's bondage, because I'm keeping myself from life, right? So I love so much that you say that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
In your book, The Urgent Life, you talk about love, and you talk about your beautiful daughter, Lael, and you talk about sort of like community that you had to build. And I think that's true for all of us. When you're going through things, you need help, and you need not just to call on the Lord, but to have people that are praying with you. And you mentioned one time that, or in your book, that you actually partnered with Lael and how that you were going to raise her. Can you share about that with us?
Yes. Well, Lael is here. She's right over there. Well, she was 4 when her father passed away, and I did not know what to do. You know, I hadn't planned on being a single parent. I didn't, all I could really see is like the years ahead of me, you know, and say like, how am I going to do this? Like, this seems impossible. It just seemed like too much. And the idea that God planted in my spirit actually has become such a beautiful blossoming flower in our lives, because it was that I shouldn't manage her as this object over there, you know, that I had to be perfect for, that I could partner with her in better understanding what it is that she needs from me and also what I need from her, so that in all aspects of my life, I could show up fully also, imperfect and all, meaning that if I was in a moment of grief, you know, because that's the other thing. People say things like, oh, time heals all wounds. And I'm like, what time is that? I ain't seen that time not one time. You know? It's like, don't you have scars that you look at and you remember exactly what happened? Right. I'm like, this does not heal, okay? This is a scar right there. But I would look at her sometimes and she would do something that reminded me of her dad. And it was like the complication of the joy and the grief in one go. You know? Or even in my career, I make no apology for the fact that I'm ambitious. Okay? Bossing it out here, okay? But there's always the judgment of everyone else, right? Society who's looking at you and saying, well, shouldn't you be more of this and shouldn't you be more of that? And it comes in so many different forms. Sometimes it comes as love from people around you, who are like, she could use you more, And I realized that I needed to be a partner with her so that I could understand better how to mother her. Not these fictional people outside, but her. But how was I going to be able to do that if I wasn't in communication with her? And so it forced me to open. And I think as parents, sometimes we want to just protect our kids from all of the things, as if that they can't be active participants in their own lives and in their own upbringing. Now, of course, I think about it and I'm just like, wow, whew. Thank God for that moment of clarity. Because then it's like, hey, look, there are some choices I'm going to have to make that maybe another mom wouldn't. But I'm going to have to do it. And how do you feel about that? And it makes her more open and more honest about what it is that she needs from me. But it is a lesson that I have applied to every part of my life now. Not just in my relationship with her, but my relationship with everybody. Because the challenge is that it is the disappointment of expectations that are set, not by you, but by others, that actually gives you guilt, that actually makes you feel less than. These expectations that fall, right? You didn't set those. Somebody else set them. And when I tell you that it's affected every part of my life, I mean, look, I'm on social media. I'm sure a lot of people in here are on social media. When I get a new job or a new place and there's a lot of press and there's excitement, all of a sudden, here come people. Don't you think you should be more fill in the blank now that you have fill in the blank title? And I'm like, so you mean this sequins outfit on a Tuesday is not appropriate? Because I think it is. But there's expectations. And so unless you understand what it is that you want for your life and how you want to live your life, and how you want to bring joy to your life, then you are going to disappoint everybody. And you are going to feel guilty. And I don't want to carry around guilt in my motherhood. I want to be joyful in it. I want to be human in it. I want to be loving in it. And there's no way to do that if I'm also carrying around guilt and fear and trauma from other relationships. So that's how it affected everything else.
I love even how you talk about even your relationship with your daughter. But what would you speak of as a daughter? Your mom is with us as well.
Yes.
What would you speak of as a daughter, and when you just trace back to your roots growing up, what that did for you, even in regards to this message about living with urgency?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I said, we're so thankful that my mom is here. As I said, she's a 2-time cancer survivor. Look, she'll be the first one to tell you that this woman exercises, okay? She's walking around outside sometimes for miles. I don't even go with her because, I get tired, okay? I think towards the end of last year, maybe in the fall at some point, I don't remember when it was exactly, I trained at a gym, and she decided that, I said, well, do you want to come train with me? Do you want to go to the gym too? And look, like I told you, she's a better athlete than all of us combined, okay? But she decided to come. Actually, I see her trainer right there. Hi, Chelsea. Okay, Chelsea. See you in the audience too. And what I love about her spirit, is that although she has faced these very terrifying things, I'm sure as her daughter, I don't know everything that went on in her mind as she faced these battles. But I have seen her strength in it. I've seen her resilience in it. I have seen, even when she was in recovery from her cancer and Peter was sick, her service in trying to do whatever she could to help. And after he died, we were living in New York. And, she was in New Jersey because she don't like New York, but whatever, that's fine. And I decided that I needed to get out of New York. You know, I wanted a change of scenery. I just wanted to change my life. And I was going to wait. So I was like, look, we're going to do it right now. And you can imagine the number of people who were like, take your time. Why don't you give it a year? Grieve first. And I'm like, you just see that my husband was sick and died in 6 months? Like, what am I waiting for? So I took a big risk. I was working at PepsiCo at the time, and there was an opportunity here in LA with Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine, who had just started Beats Music off of the back of Beats Electronics. And they offered me the head of marketing job. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go. I'm going to take it. And the beautiful thing about being this woman's daughter is that she said, I'll go with you. She didn't try to stop me. She couldn't have stopped me anyway. I don't care how big her muscles are. No, but I think that it's a really beautiful gift to be mothered that way. It allows me to mother Lael that way, which is just like, what are her hopes, dreams, aspirations? I'm sure my mother had fear in that moment. I'm sure she did. She must have had concerns. She must have thought, I wish she would just sit down and take it easy. She must have. But she didn't say it to me and put her own fear in my heart. Yeah. And it is what a lot of times also, when we're thinking about advice or counsel from other people, we talked about this a little bit in the last service. It's like, sometimes we also have to be aware of other people's fear that they put on us, and how it can come from very good places, It can be really like people care for you. I don't think anybody said to me in that moment, like, don't go because they thought I couldn't go, because they didn't think I could do the job. No, they were concerned. They're like, don't go and have a breakdown. But that was their own fear. They didn't know the path God had for me. They're not living this life that He has given me. And so I feel that there are many times when I am considering the lessons that my mom has input to me, what I'm giving Lael, and then also how I'm distributing that around. So not even just as it relates to our unit, but then to my teams that I work with or to my friends. I'm very cautious not to put my fears in other people's hearts. And then I'm cautious of their fears in mine.
I saw you grab the mic. No, I just there's so much in your story, right? Even when you talk about not having people put their fears on you or putting your fears on other people. And it just takes me back to what you mentioned about shame, right? Learning for us to show our scars, because a lot of times the reason that we are putting our fears on other people or or they're putting their fears on us is that there are things that we are not willing to talk about. Yes. So rather than me just saying like, hey, I'm afraid. This is an area of something I'm currently dealing with and I need help in this. Rather than doing that, I just put my fear on you. And now I'm trying to mirror what I'm hiding on somebody else. There was a few months ago, we did a corporate fast as a church. And myself and some of the pastors, we got together, and some of our team, we got together and we were praying and fasting, even for the church, and what God is doing in our lives. And one of the key things that was brought up was this breaking of shame. And I remember Pastor Roosevelt, he's right there, and he said something that I love so much. And he was like, man, guys, remember that Jesus kept his scars. That there was a reason why, even after having this resurrected body and glorified body, he comes to the disciples and shows them his scars. Jesus chose to keep his scars and show it, not hide it. That could have, the one thing that he could have said, hey, look, let's, clean this up. I know I had some holes in me, but let's wrap this up. He kept that. And I love that you talk about that, because when we have the ability to say, this is not just what I've been through, this is what I'm going through, then you give other people the opportunity to speak hope into your life, rather than putting fear on theirs. Right? So I love that when you talk about the book and even reading it, just the vulnerability in it, and even acknowledging like, hey, this is a lot. But to me, it's like, these are the things that you're not only showing your daughter, but you're showing the world. Like, this is part of living with urgency. There's vulnerability. You can't do that if you're not vulnerable. Right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, let's all show more scars. Y'all knees are busted, I know.
Can you share with us, speaking to that point, the Japanese...
oh, yes, kintsugi.
Yes, kintsugi.
So there's this Japanese art form called kintsugi. I only discovered it a few years ago, and I wish I'd known about it sooner. So the art form is essentially when pottery breaks, or let's say a plate breaks, right? Instead of throwing it away, you put it back together with something precious, like gold or silver, etc., and it makes something new. And it is as celebrated as the whole plate. And when I heard that art form, I thought, well, I am human kintsugi. That's what I am. I have been so broken by things that have happened in my life. But somehow, by the grace of God, I've been put back together with all kinds of precious stones. And I'm even better than I was before. Yes. And the last thing I'll say about that is that, I remember hearing this a lot at the start of the pandemic. People kept saying, I can't wait for things to get back to normal, right? And even in the title of my book, one of the things I say about why I decided to name it that is that I want us all to stop doing that, saying, I can't wait until I get back to normal. I can't wait until this is over. I can't wait until da-da-da-da, before you do the thing, Because the truth of the matter is that the life and things that happen to us that break us, we will never be normal again. You'll never go back to the person that you were. So why not celebrate the person that you are right now? Put yourself back together with some gold. Yeah. You can throw a little glitter on it too if you'd like, make it real shiny. But I love the concept that kintsugi can be us, and that we can be as celebrated for our brokenness as we are for our wholeness.
Can you even talk to our community a bit on how two things can coexist that seem to contradict each other? Because just to your point, right, the conflict that many people experienced, even with the pandemic, is this idea of how do I live in the now while grieving the old, right? But your life is such a testament of, yes, I'm grieving, but I'm also still loving the new thing that is taking place. Like you know how to welcome both experiences, both emotions, right? Without letting one weigh you down or, so can you speak on that?
Yes. Well, because all of the things can be true at once, it's amazing to me that we can find joy even in our sadness, right? Or like if you've ever been grieving and then something really funny happens and you start laughing and then you hold it back because you think you're not supposed to be laughing. Has that happened to you before? It's happened to me, you know? Or like you wake up and then you see the sunshine, you're like, oh, that's such a beautiful day. And then you remember the thing that's happening that you're like, oh no, that's not a beautiful day, forget it. You know, it's like those things can exist at once. And I find that but grief is tricky in that, you know, that it makes you want to live in the past. It makes you only want to look backwards. Think about the things that you should have done, could have done, would have done. You know, have you been in an argument with somebody where like the next day you're like, oh, I should have said, I would have laid them out with that one. Like maybe tonight I'll be thinking about what I should have said about the Nigerian jollof. I'll be thinking about that. I'm like, I should have told her it was no good. You know, but that's what grief does. It makes us look backwards into a time that is impossible to change. You know, we think about the things that we could have said, we should have said, we would have said, but there's nothing you can do about that. Literally, there is nothing you can do. We can't go backwards. And so... grief can be a thief of your present, of your joy, of your future. And so even while we are in grief, I consider that my grief now is not the sorrow of what I have lost. It is sorrow about what I thought was coming. When I grieve for my daughter with her relationship with her father, it's not that I grieve what they did in the 4 years she was alive. I grieve for the things that she would have done later. And so both things can exist, except that my grief is not pulling me backwards. I'm trying to figure out, well, how do I do things that are going to be great then in the future, so that this grief doesn't have to feel as sharp as it does in the future. And so in the consideration of the perspective, even of grief or what you have lost or what you are considering, perhaps that's something that can help change a little bit of how we behave so that your regret isn't so burdensome, so it doesn't weigh you down. Because if you consider that your grief is just what could have happened in the future, then maybe you will change the future.
Now, really quick, how many people have been grieving something that has been keeping them from moving forward? Look at that. Wow. Wow. And even in hearing your story, right, you in college, just even as an example of your ability to say, hey, it's about looking forward, right? And that's such a powerful way to put it, where it's not, I'm not grieving what was, because those were moments of joy, right? There were moments I was grateful for. I'm grieving what could have been, but now you have an opportunity to rewrite what could be.
Yes.
Right?
Because that happens in every single thing.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about, like, if you've ever been fired from a job, you know, and you get really mad and then you grow sad and you're grieving that thing, it's not because of the work you did. You know you're not grieving the work you did. It's about what you thought you were going to do.
Yeah.
The money you thought you were going to get. Mm-hmm. That's what you're grieving, really. Or like in a love relationship, right? Anybody ever got broken up with? Okay, sis. We can talk about that later. That was very emphatic. Okay, but I'm with you, though. We've all been broken up with, okay? I have been, all right? Even though I don't know why. I mean, like how? I mean, seriously, like how? You see this? How many get broken up with? I'm so mad about it. But anyway, whatever. That's not what I was going to talk about. What I was going to say is, even in a love relationship, you know, it's like what we grieve is not that like, oh man, like what we did then, but it's like, oh, I thought I was going to marry this person.
Yeah.
Or I thought we were going to live this amazing, I had already dreamed of this life. That's what we're grieving, the future. So the thought is, well, okay, maybe I still want to get married. Or I still want to go on that amazing vacation with my boo.
Yeah.
So how are you going to change your future so you can still achieve those things?
Yes.
And then your grief is not so sharp. Because that's really what we're afraid of, is the loss of the future. It's not really about regretting the past.
Yeah. That is just like, that is so profound in such a beautiful way because, yes, because I'm sure literally that is like rewriting how people see grief. You know, because even when I think about grief, when I'm sad about something, I look at it as an honor to the person's memory. You know, if I'm emotional about something that was lost, and the way you put it just wrapped it up in such a beautiful way, because for me, the sadness is an honor to their memory. I'm human. I should feel something like, man, I miss this person, right? But now in the future, how do we rewrite the story?
Yes, because
right?
it's your power.
Exactly.
Consider your grief being your power. The power to change what is coming. So don't grieve the things that have happened. You're grieving what's coming, so change it. So that it is better for you.
Yeah.
So you're happier in it. So you love bigger in it.
Yeah.
And if you do that, then the urgency in your life is what will make you feel satisfied in it.
And you know the beauty of what you're saying that I love is that we are rewriting a story that God has written. You know, have you ever watched a movie or a series, TV series, because they're long and so they have to keep changing the story. But they switch up the story on you and you're like pissed. Like I get very emotional that I just go to the end. I'm like, what happens at the end of this show?
Were you one of those people that was tweeting at me when I was at Netflix?
No.
Talking about, bring my story back.
No. But you know, I probably did in my head. But here's the crazy thing. You watch a show and they switch up the whole story on you. And you tell yourself, I'm never watching this show again. And you're back there. And the story got more interesting. And that's life, right? That God has written the story of you, and it has a lot of changes in it that you're not aware of. But the power he has given you with your imagination and creativity is his partnership with you. To learn how to rewrite a thing, right? Ooh. But it's already laid out. And to me, that's the power I see even in the ability of how you've been able, that regardless of the loss you experienced, you gave it another try. You gave it another go because you're rewriting what that future would look like. It's powerful.
Amen.
Wow.
Thank you.
So we are coming up on time, and I want to say thank you for sharing your testimony with us.
God bless you, family. Well, I just believe and know that word ministered to you as they often always do. Remember to subscribe so that you can continue to experience this rich. We'll send you a reminder. If you want to sow into this ministry, we are reaching people, as you know, all around the world, and we need your help and your support to not just bless people spiritually, but practically in all the ways that we do. The giving instructions are on the screen. Sow into this, and may the Lord bless you abundantly in every way. God bless you. We'll see you next week.